other than Brigadier General Felix Kulayigye. Brigadier, you're most welcome to this conversation. And I invite you now to just say hello to our viewers and maybe wish them maybe a lovely week as well.
Well, thank you so much for the kind remarks. Happy New Year. In the first place, this is the first time I'm talking to them in this new year. And I wish you a blessed week.
Thank you very much. Always very brief, but very eloquent at the same time. Let me go ahead to introduce our very good comrade and friend, Comrade Phionah Kyokusiima. Kyokusiima is the Regional Coordinator of Solidarity Uganda. Phionah, you're most welcome. Many thanks for joining us. Feel free to say hello to our viewers and maybe wish them a happy new year, just like the General has done.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to our viewers and a good morning.
Thank you. Still very brief as well. The third and last panelist is Colonel Jerome Bashaija. Colonel Jerome Bashaija is the Operation Wealth Creation Coordinator of the Ankole sub-region. That is in Western Uganda. Colonel, many thanks for joining us and you're welcome. I invite you to say hello to our viewers and probably, wish them a good afternoon or a good year as well. Colonel, you're most welcome. Okay, I think Colonel is having challenges with his network and connection, but just in case he joins us along the way, I will still request him to introduce himself for the benefit of our viewers and audience. Brigadier, I am going to come to you straight away with the first question of the day. It is common knowledge by now that 68% of Ugandans partake of the agriculture sector. That means that 68% of the country's population from day in and day out go to their farms and plant and wait for the harvesting period to harvest their produce. But at the same time, we know that agriculture contributes about 37% to the country's GDP. So there is a slight mismatch in terms of the human resource capital being invested in the sector versus the output in terms of gross domestic product. We also know that as a means to improve agriculture, the president in 2013 launched the Operation Wealth Creation. And the idea was that this was an intervention that was meant to transform the socio-economic status of our people and improve their household income. Basically by giving them fertilizers and maybe agricultural produce so that as they go to the farm, they can produce on maybe a much more larger scale and maybe produce for the benefit of the country and for the benefit of Ugandans. General, that is maybe all I know about the Operation Wealth Creation. But for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, I am going to request you to give us a broader background about Operation Wealth Creation. And I believe that background will set the pace for this conversation. So, General, I welcome you to give us an overall background about Operation Wealth Creation, and then we shall pick up from there. Thank you, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Matek. Since you are my son from the Northern Connection.
Oh, I forgot to introduce myself, General. My name is Kidega Moses, and I'm the moderator for this conversation. Sorry, that skipped my mind. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. We need to remember that several interventions have been done before in an attempt to pull the majority of our population out of peasant agriculture. Actually, at one point, the population in agriculture was over 80%. But the unfortunate part of it is that more than 90% of that population was in peasant farming, from the garden to the mouth. Some did not even have reserves for future seasons to plant, what we would call planning for the seeds. So the effort of government has been to reduce this peasant population so that the majority of our people enter the money economy. So that majority of our people produce for earning rather than just eating from hand to mouth. And so there have been several interventions before, since you asked me for the background. You remember there was Ntandikwa. Actually, there was a rural farmers scheme. There was, which ended up in the end part, the non-performing recovery trust, where many people were given money from Uganda Commercial Bank, but never paid back. And that partly explained why UCB collapsed. Two, then it came in Ntandikwa, where people were given money, cash. And instead they said, since it was after elections of 96, the president was thanking them for voting him. They called it Akasimo. Then it came in Bonaba Gagawale. All these have been efforts to make people get out of the peasant economy. And then the NADS program that was launched in 2002. By the year 2010, no effect was being realized despite all these efforts. And so in 2013, after a serious study of the various efforts that have been made, and in the pursuance of what the National Defense Review had come up with, because in 2004 we carried out a defense review, and we realized that we had over 15 national security threats to the country. But 75% of those threats were non-military. And the first one was food security. That we did not have sufficient food for population, which population was exploding very fast. And so the only way to exploit the population dividend was to ensure food security. And hence the introduction of Operation Wealth Creation in 2013. Of course, Operation Wealth Creation had also another intended objective. We had a big army of reserves, people who had retired from the EPDF, who we could utilize to do this job. The difference with the military is that you either deliver or you account for your failure to deliver. Unlike before with the public servants who had been given money for NADS, and then we didn't realize the benefits out of NADS. And so we were, however, given only one mandate: distribute inputs. Hence, inputs were distributed, both mechanical and, of course, seedlings and seeds. What was the consequence? By 2018, we had a bumper harvest of coffee, of maize, of tea. So the different areas where we had distributed seeds and seedlings saw an explosion of harvest. Unfortunately, this was not matched with the growth in market. And so with the bumper harvest of maize, for example, people were stuck with the produce. So post-harvest handling was a challenge. Marketing was another, yet we are in a region that consumes maize or maize products. That was first disconnect. But because of this, even despite these challenges, the people in the peasant economy decreased from 69% to 68% of the population. Today they are 39%. In my humble view, to have achieved this in 8 years, 7-8 years is a fundamental. So that's briefly the background to Operation Wealth Creation.
Thank you very much, our Brigadier General. I must say you've done us justice in terms of giving us that background. Let me move to our comrade, Comrade Phionah. Phionah, you've heard how General has put it out. He says that, and General, I'm glad that you're in charge of mindset change, because when you mention things like these government programs being seen by the population as a political reward and a political tool, it means that there is still so much to be done in terms of mindset change. And I'm glad that in the Operation Wealth Creation, you're in charge of mindset change, and I'm going to have follow-up questions to you regarding that. But in the meantime, let me first draw the perspective of Comrade Phionah. Comrade Phionah, you run a community-based organization called Solidarity Uganda. You are an activist organization that is meant to ensure that the community is really transformed and that government services reach the community level. General has given us a brief background about operation wealth creation and other government programs and interventions. From a community-based point of view, what is your analysis about these government programs that have been set aside to deal with poverty alleviation, but also to develop agriculture as a core backbone of our economy? Let me just hear from you, Phionah, your perspective from the community-based society point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses, and thank you. Thank you,
General.
General.
Yes.
Sorry about that, for that perspective and brief background about the program of OWC. And I love the fact that you bring it out as the way we have already thought about it as a political tool at some point. And I love also the background of it and the instance of it being brought about with to ensure food security. And I think that was a good plan and program. But when it comes to community level, the instance does not usually come out as at the planning point, because we usually meet a lot of deficiencies in the whole system and the process, which end up jeopardizing the whole idea of.
She's not visible.
Yes, I was coming to the same thing. Comrade Phionah, we cannot see you. I was about to mention it. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you now.
So, that's better.
So it jeopardizes the whole idea and the essence of the whole system and the plan for the program, because we have had so many loopholes, we have had so many criticisms when it comes on how these programs have been operating. And the most interesting part is that at the beginning of it, yes, the instance comes out very well and the process is usually good, but as time goes on since 2013, these things have come to change and we usually lose out and they don't usually bring out to get, as you're saying, when it comes to food security. For example, of late, the recent is having OWC was later mixed with NADS. And those two entities used to have different, I think that they had different objectives at the moment, but at the moment they were merged and we ended up losing almost at both levels on under OWC and at NADS. So we have this question of what is the difference between OWC and NADS. The other issue that we have at this point that is so specific with OWC was when it was transferred to being managed by the military or the soldiers. We have always had this question, are those people, are the soldiers graduates in agriculture? Do they know what happens? Because we find that they are the leaders who are doing certification and verification of those agriculture inputs in the whole system. So the question is, did they do agriculture studies and do they understand this very well? Then when we leave that at the moment, when we go back to our communities, we find we have cities and municipalities in our rural setup, which are not like Kampala cities or the big cities. And when it comes to OWC, we don't have contact persons in these cities and municipalities. So it has always been, there is always that loophole and disconnection when it comes to implementing agriculture in municipalities and cities, because we don't have the military people or the contact people that are usually like at the district areas. And we have always noted that this agriculture, the OWC program still runs in these cities and municipalities at a certain point. I don't know which other point I should bring out at this point. I want to, that is the brief I can give as a snapshot of what is happening when it comes to how this thing is structured at the moment in in our communities and how people feel it. And there are so many changes that have also, like I said, the problem is that whereas at the start it was good, it kept on changing with time, that even the produce or the inputs that were supposed to be getting to people at the moment, they do not come as they were in the first place. They are low or less, and even the quality keeps on changing. And I can also bring out the fact that there is a lot of corruption that I can talk about later in the system, especially when it comes to supplying these products, and it ends up bringing up poor quality products to the end users. I don't know if I should leave it at that in the moment, and then we can take the conversation to another level.
Yes.
But that is how it stands now, as in the communities. That system kept on changing, and it kept on changing for the worse since 2013.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Phionah. I must say you're very passionate and I like it. Now, I am going to wonder if Kano Bashaija has joined us finally. Kano, are you with us? If you are, then please unmute your microphone and open your video so we can see you. Then I can present you my first question. Okay, I think Kano is not here with us as yet. Brigadier General, I am going to bring this to you. Our good friend Phionah has somehow preempted some of my questions, but still she has only brought the conversation closer to you. She seems to suggest that the Operation Wealth Creation and NADS is doing more or less the same thing. And we will agree that taxpayers' money is going to both the Operation Wealth Creation and to the NADS institution. And yet they're all doing the same thing. Could you please speak about the redundancy and the repetition in terms of responsibilities and in terms of objectives of these two institutions? For the benefit of our viewers, what is the difference between these two institutions? Is taxpayers' money being used in a redundant manner, or we are on the right path? General,
first of all, thank you, Mr. Kidega. First of all, I needed to bring the dichotomy between NADS and OWC. As I said in my introductory remarks, NADS preceded OWC. And the challenge that government faced with using NADS was that, yes, there was corruption, as she has pointed out. Two, that some of the inputs were not actually given to the intended beneficiaries. And so the introduction of OWC brought in an arm that would do input distribution. NADS would do the purchase, not OWC. NADS would do the purchase of the inputs. And then OWC was simply the conduit, were the couriers to deliver what we have been given and where we have been told to take it. And so we do not duplicate the work. However, as she rightly put it, later on, I saw also NADS distributing inputs. And that is certainly a duplication of effort. And I think management had to handle it. And I don't know, maybe that's why now we are out of agricultural distribution as a result of that. But that previously, NADS was supposed to procure, and then OWC coordinators distribute the inputs. So allow me to go to her concerns. One, politics versus economics. That was a political intervention. Of course, Phionah ought to know that economics is determined by politics in the third world countries. In the developed economies, economics determines the politics. Tax policy, monetary policy, the policies you intend to do determine whom to be elected. In the third world, people elect politicians and they determine where the economy goes. Thirdly, for you to grow economically, you need a political team that is politically sound, that has a vision to take the country where it should go economically. So yes, there are political interventions, but for economic purposes. After all, politics is to determine who gets what, when, and where. Not in terms of Tonto, or Marakwang, but in terms of economic policies. And so OWC was introduced, and this takes me to our next concern, that they don't see us in cities and municipalities. For example, Bashaija is regional coordinator, Western Ankole region. There is a regional coordinator, Chigezo region. There's a regional coordinator for Gulu, for Lango, rather Chori and Lango. But there are also district coordinators. There are also constituency coordinators. Those are already 3 levels. Level 4, even when you can't trace them, the chief administrative officer, CAL, of every district has the contact of these 3 persons: the district coordinator, the constituency coordinator, and the regional coordinator. And they are actually coordinated by him for one reason, that resources generated for distribution of agricultural inputs come to the district. The chief administrative officer is the accounting officer for the district. So things happen in the district that happen in the district, the chief administrative officer must know. 4, are the soldiers graduates of agriculture? Surely. Does distributing coffee seedlings require me to have a degree in agriculture? Or giving maize seeds or bean seeds? Certainly not. The reason soldiers were utilized, I told you, was after 8 years, were they 8 or 9, of NADS being given resources. By the way, what is NADS? It's National Agricultural Advisory Services. Meaning they were supposed to distribute seed inputs, they were supposed to give extension services. In other words, see through the crops until harvest. And this was not happening. So that the intervention was brought in because there was a weakness, the way NADS was doing its job. Now later on, like she has rightly put it, NADS resumed distributing inputs, so it was duplication. And so we don't have to be graduates in agriculture in order for us to do the job we have been doing, because we did not do the purchase, we don't have the technical capability, we did not choose which seedlings, we did not choose where to take them, because zoning was done by Ministry of Agriculture, not us. As you're aware, Uganda was zoned according to what can grow best where. Even despite that, our brothers and sisters in the NADS did not implement that zoning successfully. And of course, we are the same government. You don't begin saying, but you see you are not doing your part, and yet we all belong to the same government. So you try to repair where the damage has been done. Lastly, I wanted to say that truthfully, for us to succeed in government programs, we need to deal with the mindset. And I saw that you said you wanted to go there. So that we don't treat these programs as their program. This is their thing. Rather, embrace it as our own, as a population in a particular area. Whether we are talking about Nakaseke, whether we are talking about Amur, whether we are talking about Nebi, are they receiving these programs as their own? Of course, there has been another challenge, that some of the inputs were taken where they do not actually thrive. That also we have come to realize. That was a failure on both the part of the procurement and the distribution. But the distributors, maybe because they didn't have technical knowledge, but the fact that they are born in the areas where they are coordinators, they should have known what grows there. I know what grows in my district of Kyokusiima. If you give me, for example, tea, I will not take it to Kyokusiima because it won't thrive. But you give me coffee, I will take it to thrive. You give me maize, I will tell you we don't have enough land for maize growing. I will return it. So we also failed on that part, admittedly.
Yes, thank you very much, Brigadier General. You've been very honest, I must say, which is, I think, a progressive attitude towards this conversation. I'm glad that you're able to cite out the challenges that NADS had been facing around maybe corruption and things like that. But General, just before I let you off the hook, our comrade Phionah put across some very pertinent concerns. And she said that the Operation Wealth Creation seems to many Ugandans like a military outfit. Right from its leadership, the chief coordinator is the General Caleb Akandwanaho. The deputy chief coordinator is the Major General Sam Kavuma. And almost the entire leadership, except maybe for our good friend Awori, is she called Awori or Awori, the PR or something like that?
No,
but majority of the
Sylvia Awori is the director of operations.
Yes, Sylvia Awori. But majority of the leadership seems to be inclined towards the forces, whereas we appreciate that the UPDF is highly disciplined and many Ugandans acknowledge the discipline of the UPDF. But the question still remains that what is the military doing in civilian business? Because to many Ugandans, we would imagine that this is civilian affair. And maybe the army should be in the barracks and protecting our borders and our sovereignty. But we are seeing them distributing seeds. I mean, just speak to that, General.
That's why I laughed, because I know some people are averse to this uniform, despite the fact that it's so smart. But we are dealing with the challenges to the national economy. Like I told you, the Ministry of Defense did carry out a defense review. And indeed, we realized that 75% of the security challenges were non-military, but they are challenges to security. And security is whose responsibility? It's the military. But secondly, it's an operation. Other than in the medical field, there's no other field I find the word operation other than the military. Now, an operation must have a commander. An operation must have both a strategic commander and operation commanders and tactical commanders. So the CC and his deputy are strategic commanders. The operational commanders are the rest of us who are directors. And by the way, for the information of our viewers, Sylvia Awori is not the only civilian. We have Honorable Kakomba Masiko, we have Honorable the lady who was Minister of State for Agriculture from Parisa, Kataike. We have an engineer called Wambogo, he's a civilian. We have several civilians in that area. But like I said, the military is easier to push where you have an urgent matter to handle. One, because of our structure, but two, because of the discipline. When you don't deliver, you are held accountable. With the civilians, for your information, you can only charge a civilian in a court of law before you dismiss him from a job. Even then, if the sentence is lesser than a particular time, I don't remember, the individual can come back to the job. In the military, this is not the case. If you didn't perform, you move away, you put another one. And here was the situation. Billions and billions had been sunk into agriculture, and no effect was being seen. You see, if you're a husband, like you and I hope you're a husband.
Not yet,
and
sir.
You don't, not yet. Now learn from me. If you do not fulfill your obligations, your wife may look for somebody to assist you. And most times without your knowledge.
Yes, sir.
So for you to be safe, make sure you fulfill whatever you're supposed to do as a husband. I will not go in details on this program. So similarly, if you do not want government to bring other people to help you in what you are doing, do it well. I can tell you, prior to the introduction, I think it was in Mitiana, when the president called out the chief administrative officer to give account of how much he had received and how it had been spent. And it was enormous. And yet the population was complaining, they are not seeing the effect. We went to Kulayigye the same year. Again, the people raised the same concerns. I think we're in Kulayigye or one of the Bashaija districts. And he called the chief administrative officer, same story. When he called the coordinators of NADS in the region, they had lesser money, but the effect was more. So if you are the president, what do? Do you stick with those who are on the snail's pace, or you move with those who are moving fast? So we did not have wish to come there. We were brought there because there was a weakness. Lastly, check all countries that have grown. Look at the Asian tigers. find out what the military has been doing. By the way, in most countries now, actually CEOs of most of the private companies that are doing well are retired military officers. Because for us, unlike you civilians, study strategy. I'm glad now you are introducing the art of war in business economics. We always lead the way and others follow. So don't be averse to the military uniform. Learn from us.
Thank you very much, Brigadier General. Comrade Phionah, you've heard. Let us do our job well as civilians, or we therefore have to learn from the men and women in uniform. I can see our comrade, the Colonel Jerome Bashaija seems to have joined us. Colonel, many thanks for joining us. I give you the opportunity to say hello to the viewers, and then I will have a follow-up question for you. Colonel, you're most welcome. You can unmute your microphone and show us your video, just to confirm that you're present with us. Okay, the Colonel still seems to be having challenges with his connection and network. But let me come to you, Comrade Phionah. Comrade Phionah, you've heard what the General has said, that because of the laxity in the civilian community in terms of running government institutions, there was urgent need for the men and women in uniform to take up this responsibility. Do you think institutions like yours that are meant to offer checks and balances to government are not doing enough, so that to ensure that institutions like NADS are constantly checked through your advocacy from the civil society? Or you think that you've also taken a backseat, and that is why the men and women in uniform are taking charge of government institutions, because people like you and institutions like Solidarity Uganda have not done enough to offer checks and balances? So speak to that as well, Comrade Phionah.
Thank you, Moses, and an applause to the General. And the conversation, I think, is getting so interesting. First and foremost, about that issue, he separates government from the military. And I would want to know, what is the military, who composes the military, and who's composed of government? What are we talking about when you talk of government? I thought the other people are also government workers. I thought the military are government workers. So I would want to know, how does he differentiate all the above? I don't think that the civilian organizations like the one Solidarity Uganda have failed on their part, because when we go to that party to take us into another deeper discussion where we have been, I don't know if I should say that the government fears that part of civil organizations, because on several occasions we have seen the government trying to cramp it down. They do not even welcome the criticisms that come from that side of governance and leadership and development. That is what we have seen in most cases. And I would say that our civil society organizations have been at their best and very active when it comes to monitoring, criticizing, and appreciating, which seems like the government does not like at all. And they have fought so hard, instead of defending and taking in the criticisms as a positive, on a positive side, they have always tried so hard to make sure they shut them down in one way or the other. And they want us to come here and appreciate everything they are doing. And at this moment, I would say that we have so many issues that we could raise on how this system of OWC and NADS is working. For example, he talks about, like he said, he separated NADS from OWC, that NADS purchases and OWC gives. And I don't know how that one works, because I think there is a lot of confusion when you come to the beneficiaries, or where the things are supposed to be going. The question is, who verifies those inputs? Because the NADS people seem not to know, and OWC is supposed to give. Who verifies the suppliers and tenderers? I was talking about corruption when it comes to that process. We have seen citizens there which come here and they are not supposed to be here, and even at the wrong time. There was a time we received cassava. Why should people bring cassava in Ankole region from Nakasongora? And then we see those cassava stems growing up, and then they do not even yield down, because we also have our own cassava. who recommends that. We have seen monopolization of suppliers, whereby people, they have someone who's supplying tea. They verify it from Kampala, from the central. We don't have this, their system does not have this bottom-up planning. They do top-bottom. They verify like a tenderer from Kampala or the central region to supply tea somewhere in Gweju or Bushenyi. And after verifying the farm, like in Mbende, where the tea seedlings are supposed to come from, the person on the ground ends up supplying tea seedlings from Masaka. That is a different farm. Those are some of the issues that we have seen. So the question is, who's supposed to manage all that process, and we ensure we have what is right and at the right time? I was talking about, we don't have, he talked about the whole system, including the cows, trying to manage the system when those things arrive at the district level. I could give an example of last year. Some information was supposed to be delivered to the municipality in Bushenyi, where they were supposed to ask for bean seedlings, but the information remained at the district because that is where the OWC coordinator is sitting, and it could not get to the municipal production office at the right time. And by the time it got there, the season had already ended, and they were told, no, now you have to wait for 2022 March because the season for beans had already ended. So those are some of the loopholes we are talking about. Let me talk about seed multiplier within the regions. What if that would even be able to, if they would be able to come to a particular place and know maybe this type of beans grows very well in Bushenyi, and it could be got from Mbarara, then they get people to grow that type of beans in Bushenyi to be better, instead of going back to the center every now and then to collect those bean seedlings, which usually come at a certain point they are not good quality, and they even carry some diseases. Those are some of the issues we are looking at. So I think we still have so many issues to talk about, to verify when it comes to that system. Another issue that we have seen in this system is, at first, OWC used to bring, let's say they would bring like 10 cows, they give them to a particular person in Bushenyi, and then they would go ahead to ensure and see, they would even give them like maybe part of the inputs included maybe like medicines, fertilizers, to see how those cows are doing well, and see maybe if they could even give to other people. But of late, they bring like 5 cows, and they need everybody gets like 1 cow in a sub-county. And at the end of the day, we don't see any value added, because how do you even monitor 1 cow? How long does it take for why would even someone invest in 1 cow? Before they would even bring, so we have this issue where people, they do not even consult on what people want. They are just dumping things. We used to have people, when they would give like someone a group of pigs or piglets to rear, and then they would monitor like after 1 year and see how many that they have come to. But because these days someone is given like 1 pig, they even don't know who gets the particular pig. So it is even very difficult for someone to follow up. We don't even see value addition in those things, and even multiplier effect, or even other people getting from those. Then the other issue we have is that they want to give to everybody, and people get like 1 cup of beans instead of people getting like a basin, and they grow in big quantities or big quantities, and they also supply. So people are only growing crops for their own food, for their own homes, just food crops for people to eat, and that's all. So there are so many things that we could bring out when it comes to that system because of the way it is structured. And we still think the issue that we are talking about is having soldiers and even few people who are staffing and less people at the same time managing the whole process.
Thank you very much, Comrade Phionah. I must say you're very passionate and enthusiastic about how you present your argument. Let me bring on the Kano. Kano, I can see your video. Kano, could you please unmute your audio so that we can have you part of this conversation? We can see, oh, now you've closed your video again. Kano, could you please unmute your audio as well as turn on your video? Oh, wow. Okay. Yes, Kano. Yes, Kano, we can see you. So unmute your audio as well.
Unmute?
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much. Now we can see you, Kano, and we can hear you. Kano, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And I request you to say hello to our viewers, and then I will have a subsequent question for you, sir. Kano, you could just say hello to our viewers so they can hear your voice, and then I can have a follow-up question. Okay, I think this technology era is rather very challenging. Kano, okay, Kano, I'll come back to you shortly, but let me go to our very good Brigadier General who is here with us. Brigadier General, I will come back to...
Having some challenges, our moderator, Moses, Jerome Bashaija, regional.
Okay. Kano, you are speaking. Just go ahead, unmute your microphone and go ahead and speak. Kano, unmute. I can see you're trying to speak, but we are not hearing you. So unmute your microphone so we can hear you. Yes.
Are you getting me?
Yes, perfect. So go ahead.
I said I'm Kano Bashaija, Regional Coordinator, Ankole region. In the wisdom of His Excellency, he introduced and using us as soldiers to beef up the extension officers. For us as military, we did our job. We started with mobilization, sensitization, and our people, the community surely received our message. But the challenges we are facing is just from the NADS, the Secretariat. We create the demand, we make people like the way we have talked, but on delivery, since we are the receiving end, after creating demands, we don't receive the way we have moved the people. People ask so many things, expecting a lot of inputs. But at the end of the day, since we are not in planning, we are not involved in planning, at times we are given things which they want to injure, which the community have not asked for. So as Phionah was saying, for us in the military, I believe His Excellency the President looked at the way things have been mixed up and said, I can use my cadres for us as the military. We came in, we mobilized, we sensitized, but the challenges we are getting in most cases, how we make people plan how to receive most of the inputs. At the end of the day, we receive things which are not enough. Being at the receiving end, the people, the communities, then we receive which is not enough. Those are the challenges we're getting. But otherwise, I believe since the time we came in place, we have really improved the communities. The 68% the president was looking at, people who are not in money economy, because we don't have money. For us, we have made our level best. We have really done our part as the cadres who have mobilized. We have done our best, except that what we receive from the Secretariat is not enough as we make our people ready to receive. In most cases, you find people, most of the communities, we prepare them, but we don't receive what is enough for them. Just because we are not involved in the planning. Being at the receiving end, we don't get enough to give the communities. We are not involved in planning for us to receive. I think, Moses, you have got my part.
Yes, thank you very much, Kano. I am glad that you're here with us, and I'm glad that your technical challenges have been addressed, because by and large, you're going to help us answer some of these questions.
Yes, please.
I believe that the structuring of the Operation Wealth Creation to have tiers even at regional level and even at constituency level was to bring the services closer to the people. You are a sub-regional coordinator of Ankole. And we have our comrade Phionah, who runs a community-based organization. Before you came, Phionah was telling us that the Operation Wealth Creation is not being localized. Its impacts are not being felt at community level. She says that decisions are being made in Kampala and just impounded on the people or just imposed on the people. There is lack of consultation. The Wananchi are not consulted enough. And all this is coming from Phionah, from the community-based point of view. As someone who is closer to the community at sub-regional level of Ankole, do you think you've done enough to bring the Operation Wealth Creation to the people of Ankole? And if so, what is there to show? Has the agricultural intake or has production of agriculture improved in Ankole ever since the Operation Wealth Creation came into place? Or we are seeing the same story? So speak about how close the Operation Wealth Creation is to the people and some of these challenges that Phionah put across. On to you, Kano.
Thank you very much, Moses. Operation Wealth Creation has brought services to people. I don't disagree with Phionah. Phionah says we have not done much. For us, we have mobilized, we have sensitized, and the communities are very much aware. And most people appreciate. At first, the extension workers were not close to the people. But since our intervention, extension workers are doing their work because we have teamed up with them, we have mobilized with them, and most things have, except that we don't receive as per the demands we create. When we create a demand, people say, we want this, we want this. But since we are the receiving end, most things we have created, we don't receive them as the people have demanded. Moses, are you getting me?
Yes, Kano, we can get you very well. Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Kano. Brigadier General, I am going to come to you right away. And pillar 3 of the principles of Operation Wealth Creation is anchored on the aspect of technology. You know, that we must upgrade from rural farmers into small-scale industries. I want to believe that to achieve this, we must embed some bit of technology, some bit of industrialization. Let me speak shortly about the aspect of technology. We still know that there is still a high tax, for example, on data, a 12% tax on data. Facebook still remains closed up to now. How would you then expect our young people who have been born and raised in the .com era, that have lived in the technological era, to come into agriculture, and yet they cannot market their goods online? We know that the young people of today were born in the .com era. For them to participate actively in agriculture, they would love to do so in a manner that is free, in a manner that they understand, which is technology. But data has a very high tax. Facebook remains closed. Do you think we shall eventually transform from a rural setting of agriculture to small-scale industries, or this is still a far-fetched dream? Yes, Jerome, on to you.
Thank you, Moses. I like that song which is being sung these days of data being very high because of tax. But when you check Twitter, everybody is tweeting, people are on WhatsApp. What have we been using this data for? How I wish indeed it was for marketing. I would be one of the greatest advocates of tax reduction. Before I leave that one, it's known that paying taxes has been very unpopular since Jesus' day. And the situation is not about to change. And yet you and I know that even the little government is able to do comes from taxes. And by the way, let me use this opportunity to inform our viewers. The GDP tax ratio of Uganda is the lowest in the region. We are 13%. Even in Burundi, which has been the civil war all the time, their tax GDP ratio is 16%. Rwanda is 17. Yeah, 15 rather. Burundi, Tanzania, 17, Kenya, 18%. But you hear somebody goes on air shamelessly and tells you, we have the highest tax ratio in the region. Not at all. We are the lowest. But it's not about defending tax. Do we need revenue? Yes. Is the tax base large enough to provide us the revenue? No. So let us create business opportunities and you will see that tax will go down. And I can assure you, anybody starting a business, taxes are always either waived or reduced for you. The difference is we want data to do things that are not productive. And you know it, Moses, it's not something I have to go into. But back to the question of industrialization. No country will develop without industrialization, none. In other words, industrialization is a necessary condition for us to develop. And stemming from agriculture, where we have been discussing for this last 1 hour or so, we are looking at agriculture industrialization. In short, to use the common terms, value addition in the agricultural sector. So the small scale industries we are targeting as government, and I'll come to the question, Phionah asked what the difference between government and the army and the other civil servants, is that the produce in agriculture should be processed where it is being produced. And then it can go to the market when there is value addition. Because when it is a raw product, the prices are very low. And so the farmers lose. So the interest today is value addition, what has been produced in agriculture, whether crop or animal products. Once you have value addition, then you can be sure that you will be able to get one, market, but two, higher value what you have produced. Now, the target of the parish development model is exactly that the parish is being targeted to be self-sufficient in terms of production, processing, and then market. What the parish can't consume, then will be able to be moved out of the parish since it has been processed. Therefore, it has a longer lifespan than the primary products. So government vis-a-vis the army. Of course, government is for all of us. And two, I'm a government servant as a military officer. An agriculture officer is a government servant. But I told you the difference. The civil servant has job security, even when he's not performing. Elsewhere, even in one of the neighboring countries, if you don't perform according to the indicators you mentioned, you are sacked. In this great republic of yours and I, a civil servant can't be sacked. You can only interdict him. Even then, he will continue earning half pay. So we need to appreciate the challenges that head of state faced in some of these issues. So we are all government now. Government vis-a-vis civil society like Phionah's organization. We don't fear civil society. But rather, I think the challenge has come in when a civil society moves from their mandate and you move something else. And you check, it always comes around election time when you see some civil society organizations becoming more political supervisors than actually civil society. Then they add something else, and this one I've asked many of my friends from civil society. They tend to act as if they are the people's representative. And I ask them, who gave you the mandate? People elect councillors, people elect members of parliament, people elect the head of state. You, civil society, you are speaking as who? And lastly, who finances this civil society? Because we all know, he who pays the piper determines the tune. So let us not ignore civil society organizations are good, they have given our sons and daughters jobs. But when you go beyond your mandate, then you are called to order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, our very good General. Phionah, you've heard the words from General Felix Kulayigye. I mean, he seems to allege or accuse the civil society of two things. One, that you overreach your mandate, and he puts a question of financing, that who finances the civil society? So I will give you an opportunity to answer those two questions, but also let me pose a third question to you from my end. And still I'll make reference to what the General said. General said that for any country to develop, we must industrialize. He was very intentional, we must industrialize. We know that the Western countries, yes, they did industrialize very heavily. They set up industries of copper mines and all these mineral mines. But we also know that today there is an emerging issue of climate change. And this climate change is as an impact of the high levels of industrialization. So my question to you, Phionah, is that whereas we want to industrialize, the question of sustainability, that yes, we have to exploit the resources, but in a sustainable manner so that the generations that come after us don't find when they're depleted. So to you, Phionah, do you think civil society is doing enough to prepare the community to address the issues of climate change, things like planting more trees, things like preserving the environment, so that even when we industrialize, the environment is still conserved and our resources don't deplete? So 3 questions. 1, the aspect of industrialization vis-a-vis the changing climate. 2 is the aspect of, is civil society overreaching its mandate, like General Felix Kulayigye mentioned earlier on. Then 3, the question of the financing of civil society. So on to you, those 3 aspects. Comrade Phionah, you have the floor.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you, General, for the questions and explanation. When we talk about the issue of, let me start with the issue of civil society overreaching their mandate. He said that civil society speaks for who? Civil society is, they are the people. People come together, and because the whole village cannot come to the district to demand, that's where they grouped themselves into organizations. That's why we call them civil society organizations, because everybody does not speak, just the same way that we look for representatives to lead us. It's the same way that civil society organizations organize themselves, so that people can always bring out their issues and make sure they reach out to the people who are in government, the leaders, the districts. But the way he brings it out, that's why I'm saying he's still biased. The way he brings it out is so biasing of what civil society is, what it does, and that's why he feels like we tend to overreach. The question is, where do we tend to overreach our mandate? He only gave an example of elections. If we leave around that, has he seen civil society doing anything apart from the political elections, from the political era, which only happens like once in 5 years? That's why I was saying they tend to shun what we do with that bias of where do we get the money, who are we representing, and they ignore whatever we are doing. And just with the same questions he was bringing them out. We are the people, civil society organizations, those are groups, those are CBOs, just like we have any other group in the village. It's as if when you say that we have these groups in our villages for burial programs, it's as if when you say, who does that group of burial people come to do? Of course, every civil society organization, they are registered, they have mandate, they have goals, they have priorities, they have objectives, and they have always presented that. But the bias I was talking about, it is the same bias he's using to ask those questions of who are they, what do they do? But we have always had objectives, like you're saying, I'm analyzing and telling exactly what is happening with OWC at the ground level. Is that too much? Is that overbearing? Is that overreaching our mandate? Telling them that even when they say that they are trying to organize OWC or separate it from that, we still find the same confusion. It's worse than before. Then on the issue of financing, We are regulated by the government of Uganda, and they even know where those, because the same people who finance civil society organizations, they are the same people who are financing even some of the programs. So I don't know why he puts it like we go underwater and we scoop out money. Even we have financial guidelines and regulations, which are governed by the same financial institutions that govern even government issues. Our banks are the same as the same banks that other people use. So the way he puts it, where we get our finances, it's as if we scoop money somewhere and we put it into the country without knowing. For issues of money laundering, we have had people answer to those questions, which is not the case, meaning they even know where we get that money. So he shouldn't feign ignorance. In fact, he's trying to feign ignorance. In that matter, when he keeps on saying, where do we get our finances? As if it comes from heaven and we put it there, no one rejects it or no one knows where it comes from. Then when I got to the last question of climate change and industrialization, yeah, it's still a bit tricky thing. And I think we are very slow. And I don't know if it's because we have to do maybe a lot of sensitization and awareness, because people do not feel the impact of climate change the way we know it, we people who are discussing it. The wananchi, the people on the ground, or the rest of the people do not understand it, but there are very big efforts. We have so many organizations, civil society organizations, into that part of climate industry, in climate change, telling people what we should expect, the dangers, and what should be done. Only that it is on a very slow pace, because people do not feel the impact of it, like when something happens to you physically. But I still believe civil society organizations are doing their best when it comes to that part, and they have been talking and advocating and even doing so many activities when it comes to the issues of climate change.
Yes, thank you, Phionah. I will come back to you shortly. Kano Jerome Bashaija, are you still with us? Hopefully you're still with us, because I have a follow-up question for you. Kano, could you please just unmute your microphone? I can see your video is already unmuted. Then I can pose the question right to you. Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So my question to you, Genre, is that, Kano, is that you've heard what Phionah said. Phionah says that civil society, and this is her opinion, which she has a right to, she says that civil society represents the people. They are the voices of the wananchi, even when they don't have the political mandate, like Brigadier General was trying to put it, they still represent voices of the wananchi and voices of the people. But she also says that government and its institutions, like the Operation Wealth Creation, don't listen to the views of this civil society, that you're biased. And these are our words, that you're biased and you don't listen to views of civil society and therefore views of the wananchi. Do you think that government institutions, like the Operation Wealth Creation, listen to the views of the wananchi through their civil societies? And if so, could you please cite for us some examples where the Operation Wealth Creation has listened to views coming from civil society and has said, okay, these are good views and we shall make, maybe changes here and there? On to you, Kano. Then, Kano, quickly, as you respond, could you adjust your camera so that we can see your face fully? We can see you, but we are seeing more of the ceiling than your face. So just tilt the camera, yes, like that, Kano. That is perfect.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. For us as wealth creation, earlier on, I have been telling you that we have done the mobilization, the sensitization to the communities, and the communities have responded. And the demands which the wananchi make, at times we don't overcome them, because I earlier told you, I said that we are at the receiving end. We create demands, and we after creating demands, we don't receive as per our demands. The civil society organization, as Phionah has said, for us, we are to the people, right? I told you we are from the region, the district, and the constituency. And those are the communities we are dealing with. These community, civil organizations are not seen daily. They come out to challenge, but they are not down to the people. For us, if you go up to the cows, they are very much aware that the operational segregation has gone down to the communities. What I would appeal to those civil organizations, they should come out and we team up together, because our goals and challenges are the same. We want our people to come out and be in the money economy, not like we are operating opposite. We should come up together. These leaders of those civil society organizations come up, we meet together, we have established the offices, then we look at our people, the way they are facing the challenges down the people. Have I answered
Yes.
the question?
Yes, thank you very much, Kano. I must say you've done us justice in terms of that response. And Comrade Phionah, I'll come back to you later as a follow-up. But for now, let me go to the Brigadier General. Brigadier General, by now we all know, and you boss has told us, that Uganda's population is a very young population. About 75% of the country's population is of young people. But these same young people have grown up in a time, or maybe because of the education system, they look forward to white-collar jobs and not things like agriculture. And you are directly in charge of mindset change, and this is a mindset issue. How are we going to convince our young people who have gone through education and a system that trains them to be, aspire to be office bearers, than to actually get their hands dirty, fold their sleeves, get their boots on, and go to the farm? And also, as a follow-up question, last year there was a World Bank report that was trying to analyze Uganda's economy. This World Bank report posed a question and said that, does Uganda have capacity to harness or benefit from its demographic transition? The country is very young. We know that young people come with innovativeness, they come with energy, they come with productivity. Is the country prepared enough to harness this potential, which begins, I believe, from a mindset point of view, change their mindset, and then they can eventually be a productive population? So on to you, General.
My answer is yes and no. Yes, in as far as at least government has put in place technical institutions, that even if you have stopped at primary level, you can go and learn a skill in a technical institution. If you have stopped at O level or in O level, you still can go in a technical school and learn a skill. At my time, our mindset was despising the practical subjects. How I regret the time I missed learning woodwork, which I had in O level in Kabarega Secondary School. Today I would be making my own furniture. But now I have to go on a bench for somebody who may even give me poor quality wood because I don't know, and yet I had the chance to learn. So the first mindset to have to deal with are the parents. Because the first learning environment for a child is at home. 0 to 7 years. What's the mindset of the parents? Whereas at my time, parents believed they had a responsibility to nurture and mold and groom a child. Today, we think it is government's responsibility. You have heard people say, these are 7 children. And so, even buying uniform becomes a problem. So, mindset of the parents to appreciate their responsibilities. 2, dealing with the mindset of the children as we compete with the TV and the phones. Every child has access to a mobile phone now. And now, since you have access to a mobile phone, a smartphone at that, they think what they see in the movies, what they see on Twitter, that's how life is in reality. And those are just acting. 3, they think these people started from where they are. We need to know or to appreciate their history vis-a-vis our history. Where have we come from? Where are we? And where are we headed? Why are those rich people rich and why are we poor? That's not being answered. And nobody wants to go there. When I see thousands of young people dying in the Mediterranean, trying to cross to Europe, I get so sad. When I see people here crying that they have been denied a visa because they want to go and be a Bapakasi, to do slavery in the Middle East and Europe and the United States, I feel so sad because wealth is here. The issue is about we identifying the opportunities around where we are. Not everybody, I'm yet to see anybody who has become a billionaire because he worked abroad and came back. So it's we to change our environment. And maybe God gave us the wealth that has made us lazy in thinking. We have a good climate, good soils. Elsewhere where we are running to, right now people are suffering with a very cold winter. But that's where we want to go. Yet we have a climate here. When you are driving from Ginger to Kampala, you throw a seed outside the window, come back 3 months later, you have food. Why don't we harness these opportunities? We live in a region that has food scarcity. And every country's wealth depends on its young population. Because that's the energetic sector of the population. Today, you and your brothers and sisters want things ready, not things worked for. And that's why happening is the most popular thing. That's why the second wave of coronavirus hit the young population more than the older ones because of the happening. We want to enjoy, we don't want to work. That's why I say this starts from home. I am what I am because of what my father taught me. As a man, he mentored me to be a man in charge of what I'm supposed to do. No wonder today you want to be married to working women. I want a woman who has money. What are you bringing on board? I was brought up to know that it's a man's responsibility to provide for his family. But now I've had associations, Stingy Men Association. Why is stingy? Stingy to who? So in my humble view, the starting point is the home. The next level is in the school, changing the mindset of teachers. When we were in primary, digging was used as a punishment. That in itself is a negative mindset. You are making the young person think that digging is bad, but food comes from the garden. And then so for me, I believe the population explosion in this country, actually you are 72% of our population, would be the best thing for us. Japan declined because a bigger part of the population was the elderly. So we should be growing very fast because of the young population. But what do we require? We require one, innovative minds, critical thinking, not depending on forgery or forging other people's things, even when they are not applicable here. The second mindset we need to have is the mind of responsibility. 3, loving our country. Look at many of your colleagues. The thinking is, it's as if we are strangers in this country, we are citizens of a different one. And I'm wondering which one it is that they are citizens of. And so you'll find somebody telling you, you are government. You see, people associate party politics with government. Politics ought to be during election year. After elections, it is production time. So whatever government has brought, it is yours for you and I. The question should be, how do I utilize government policy for my benefit and to make myself better? And then we, government workers as well. Some of us think by sitting in an office, you have arrived. Far from it. In an office, you are there to serve. You are a tool for the country to change progressively. And therefore, if you have sat in a government office, you should be ready to listen to those who want to come and see you. Of course, you know, the redundant ones who come begging. And that brings me to the last point, the begging mentality. To think somebody else owes me a living. Not at all. You owe yourself a living. You owe your country productiveness. You must add the value to what you have found as a young person. So the challenge is all round, that we as government servants must utilize government resources for the public good, not personal benefit. So those people you are calling corrupt, they're actually thieves, not corrupt, because they are stealing public money. If I drive a government car to go to my farm on a working day, I have robbed the government. I have robbed the country. And so it should be everybody. Phionah was talking about resources, not rather inputs not being given what they are supposed to be or coming late. Who is supposed to supervise? It's the local leadership. Who are you electing councillors at the sub-county and the district level? By the way, for information, this is the most country in the world where power has been decentralized up to the village level. You are not using the power. Instead, you find we are adoring the MP, whom we have sent to represent us, and he becomes our boss. We are idolizing the chairman of the sub-county or district, whom we have put in charge to make sure things move. Instead, he becomes our lord. Again, the mind. So in my humble view, it's at home level, in the primary school, in the secondary school. And those who are old out of school is to challenge each one of ourselves. How can I make my life better? Because nobody else will make it for you.
Yes, thank you very much, Brigadier General. I must say that I agree with you that this mindset change is cross-cutting. The parents must have a mindset change, the children must have a mindset change, and the ecosystem continues. And like Karl Marx will tell us that society proceeds by contradiction, but also that family is the primitive construct of any society. That for us to develop as a society, we must begin at family level. So I thank you for those very good views. Phionah, let me come to you. Phionah, you've heard what the Colonel said earlier on. Colonel said that civil society, you only come up to challenge and to criticize. Maybe in other words, you don't come up to make meaningful contribution towards the socio-economic development of maybe our society. Let me pose this to you. Do you think civil society, you only come up to challenge what government is doing, whether good or bad, or you actually also make contribution in your own right? And if there are any contributions, please feel free to give us examples of your tangible benefits or your tangible results in terms of impacting society. Then two, do you agree with the Brigadier General in terms of the mindset? Give us your opinion about mindset and also respond to the concerns raised earlier. Phionah, on to you.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you, everyone, for their contributions. You're asking me to talk about the issue of contribution from civil society. I think it's in human nature that you don't want to be told what bad thing you have done, that even when they say it, it overshadows. We have already heard that saying that sometimes the bad overshadows even the good things that someone has done. So it's I think something like they don't want to appreciate the fact that we usually challenge some things, but I think we recognize even the good that they do and always want to keep them in check and make sure that we don't lag behind or we don't go wrong in certain instances. But it's not that we only want to challenge or challenge or challenge. But if you're giving me food, if you are a mother to a child and you're cooking food, that is what is expected of you. So when I come home and I don't find food, then that's when the child is going to ask, and it's like, today we did not eat lunch, but not that they have not been eating. So I don't think it is the way they are putting it that we just like challenging. No, it's not that. In fact, we have most civil society organizations have worked with government officials to even fight. In most cases, the corruption cases have been due to that have been fought or recovered or even brought up to book. It was because of civil society organizations. So our main role is to make sure that we bring out that, and people will feign or will fear keeping on doing it because they will fear embarrassment. We have had civil society in some other sectors beyond the governance part, those ones who are in health sector, those ones who are in education sector. There are those ones who have contributed to those sectors, just like service delivery is directly. So ignoring the other fact that makes them so uncomfortable, we used to have a leader who would be like, why don't you come and tell me that one before you say it to everybody? As if I'm hiding something or as if I shouldn't expose it. But civil society has contributed a lot when it comes to issues of keeping the government in check, fighting corruption, and this that they don't like our shouting. They usually say we like making noise. It is the stepping stone that we have been moving at least in a better way, and we are seeing what we are seeing. We are giving people information on some of the things. The mindset he's talking about, the Brigadier General is talking about. The only way have been doing it is by giving people information, to tell them this tax is coming, so people get interested in what happens when we talk about tax. They even didn't know they were paying tax. And that is the only way we can do it. And civil society organizations have done that when it comes to giving people information by organizing them and mobilizing them to participate in some of those things. They have been able to give out that information. So it has really done a lot alongside the government and
the work, or you die or survive. Very few of us are willing to go that direction. So we need foreign direct investment. Now, when you have a bigger economy, I mean, if one city of China or one province like Shanghai has about 40 million people, why should the Chinese come bring his money here? The other state is the other side. So integration is a must. But how we deal with it politically, of course, as you put it, is political way, negotiation, diplomatic efforts. Certainly, border closure is counterproductive, is reactionary. Closing a border when people astride the border, brothers and sisters, in my humble view, is wrong, because you are not affecting the regime in Kampala, you are affecting the people on the border. And then we have the issue of comparative advantage, that each country in this region has a comparative advantage over others in a certain subsector or certain area. When we are integrated, we shall exploit these comparative advantages. But when you close the border, you actually malice yourself in the area where you are not competent. And as far as I'm concerned, our border with Sudan is open, our border with Tanzania is open, our border with Kenya is open. The difference, we must graduate from parochial nationalistic interests. I'm calling them parochial because indeed they don't benefit the bigger good. They simply keep us in the smaller ponds. I know there are some people who want to be big fish in small ponds, but I would rather be a small fish in an ocean.
Thank you very much, General. I don't think anyone else could have convinced us more, Uganda. Let me come to you, Phionah. Phionah, my last question to you is that you began off on the aspect of corruption, and it's only fair that my last question to you is anchored around corruption. Phionah, we know that Uganda has set aside so many institutions to fight corruption. We know that there is the Inspectorate of Government, which is headed by the Honorable Betty Kamya. We know that Uganda has an Anti-Corruption Act of 2009. We know that in 2018, the president launched the State House Anti-Corruption Unit, but the same unit last year produced a report that Uganda still loses about 2 trillion to corruption. So do you think these institutions that are there in place, do they have the backbone to fight corruption, to check government institutions like NADS, like Operation Wealth Creation, to ensure that the public payers' money, the taxpayers' money that goes to these institutions is accounted for, there is transparency, or do you think these institutions have failed, and that is why institutions like Solidarity Uganda are coming up to offer an alternative check and balance to these government institutions? So Phionah, speak into corruption, and that will be your last question. Then I will come to you, Kano, your last question as well.
Thank you very much, Moses. To our viewers, you wonder why the same government should have different entities to fight one particular thing. To me, it would be one system strengthened to work on that. The fact that they have so many entities working on the same thing, it's the same confusion and failure that we see every day, and why corruption cannot come to an end in Uganda. So I still call upon civil society organizations to take up the mantle, strengthen their capacities, and to be resilient in this fight against corruption, because the different entities that we have itself is a sign that the government has failed. Why should we have the IG? Why should we have the anti-corruption? Why should we? There are so many. And the question is, why don't we have one unit strengthened to fight against corruption? Why should we bring in different people from here and there, and everything still, and it still remains the same, with the same confusion, with the same corruption eating up the country? So we again leave it to the civil society organization to lead in the fight and ensure there is sanity, because it is the entities we are talking about, the different entities are working for the government. It is still the same government. So it becomes so confusing, and I think it brings about the inefficiency. I don't know who directs the other. I don't know who's waiting for who. That is the confusion that we have in the system, and the only way we need someone outside now the system to work on that and maybe bring about the different or the inefficiencies and the weaknesses inside the system that we are talking about, because themselves they cannot handle.
Yes, thank you very much, Comrade Phionah. That was your last question. My last question now goes to Kano Jerome Bashaija. Kano, my last question to you is that Uganda as an economy, agriculture remains the backbone of Uganda's economy, up to date. But there has been a question around information access. How best do you think the Operation Wealth Creation can circulate its information and tell Ugandans, tell the Wananchi where they can access these services, where to go and who to speak to, where to contact? Because these are good programs, but at times there's an information gap. Ugandans don't know about these very good endeavors. So speak about the information access. Do you think there is an information gap, first of all? And if you think there is, what do you think needs to be done to bridge the information from a Wananchi in my village, in Atiang, in Gulu, so they can access the information and be able to partake and benefit from these government services? That's your last question, and please unmute your microphone. And yes, we can get you.
I've done it. Thank you, Moses, and all viewers. The information access, I believe we, as Operation Wealth Creation, we have done a lot. Out of our mobilization, sensitization, we have put the youth on board. And the youth today understands why we are out there. We have put the youth on board that they know now that agriculture is the backbone of our success. My appeal now to all those civil organizations to come on board. We have established offices. These people should come to us and we team up and work together in order to make our people understand exactly what is happening on ground.
Yes, thank you very much, Kano. Just stay there and give us your parting shots. Give us your last words on this show.
My last words on this show, I want to take this opportunity and thank you, Moses, for involving us and giving us a chance of to the people. I hope our people are getting us, and surely we are very, very grateful. We want the youth to come out and join us as we have really appeared. And the civil society organization should also come on board, and we meet them. We have the constituents, we have the district, we have the region, so that we work together in order to develop our people. Thank you, Moses.
Thank you very much, Kano. Many thanks to you, and thank you for being a diligent servant to this country. Thank
Moses,
you.
those are my last words.
Yes, thank you very much, Kano Jerome Bashaija. Those were very eloquent and elaborate last words. We thank you for your continuous service to the forces and to this country. On to you, Comrade Phionah. Phionah, your last words on this show. I invite you to unmute your microphone and video as well and give us your parting shots.
Thank you, Moses. Thank you, Kano, and thank you, Brigadier General. It's been great hearing your views about how you feel and think about civil society organization. And there were also great words from the Brigadier General about how we can improve and work best generally. And I wish all our viewers the best of 2022.
Thank you very much, Comrade Phionah. Then it's now my single opportunity to invite you, Brigadier General, to give us the last words from yourself on this show. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Moses, for moderating us well. It's been a pleasure exchanging views with my OB, Kano Bashaija. It's been nice hearing the views of Comrade Phionah. We do not have a beef with the civil society organizations. We believe they are doing a good job as well. There are occasions we cross paths, but when we do understand each other, things move nicely, and we should continue doing so. This country has a great future, given its big young population. For me, that's a dividend that should exploit. But you young people ought to realize that this country is yours, not anybody else's. We must be ready for its stability and development. I wish everybody a blessed year.
Thank you very much. From me to you, my name has been Kidega Moses, and I've been the moderator for this show. And from our end, many thanks to all of you. You've been an amazing panel. I am sure that our audience and our viewers have learned a lot from you. Right from my extreme left, the Brigadier General Felix Kulayigye, thank you very much. We have learned a lot from you today. On to you, Comrade Phionah Chomusika. Thank you very much for giving us very elaborate views.